Right now, as you lie here, as your eyes grow slowly heavier, as your breath deepens and you begin to feel the weight of your own body settling, I want to take you somewhere very far away. Not so far, really. Backwards through time, all the way to the beginning, to the great silence that came before everything. But first, let go. Simply let go. Allow your shoulders to drop. Unclench your jaw. Release whatever tension still lingers between your fingers for a little while. The only thing you need to do is breathe. One slow breath. And again. And again. Because the story I want to share with you is not a story that hurries. This story waited billions of years before it even began. A few more minutes make no difference to it at all. Now close your eyes and consider this. What does nothing truly mean? Your mind will probably reach for a room. Empty, dark, four walls, or perhaps a desert, perhaps the absolute blackness at the bottom of a fathomless sea. But all of these are still something. Even a room is something. Even darkness is something. Even emptiness, believe me, is something. True nothingness is none of these things. True nothingness is a place where even the concept of absence does not exist. Because to say something is absent, you first need a place for it to be absent from. You need a moment in which it can be missing. In true nothingness, there is no place. There is no moment. There is no largeness, no smallness, no warmth, no cold, no sound, no light, no motion, no stillness. And most crucially of all, there is no time. Sit with that for a moment. Your mind will circle around the idea, reaching for something to grip, searching for a ledge, a handhold, something solid. But there is nothing to grip, because without time, there is no before and no after. The question when becomes meaningless. Before the universe was born, there was no time. And so before the universe did not exist, at least not in any sense that we could understand. Does that thought make you feel a little dizzy? Good. Dizziness is a sign that you have arrived at the threshold of a very great truth. Scientists sometimes use a Latin term to describe this state of beforeness. Singularitas. The singularity, a singular point. But even that is a misleading name, because the human mind, upon hearing the word point, immediately places it somewhere in space. Something tiny, yes, but still something. Still a location. Yet this singularity was not a point in space. Space did not yet exist. This singularity was not a moment in time. Time did not yet exist. This singularity was everything. Everything that would ever be, compressed and folded and contracted and turned inward upon itself. Our sun was there. Our earth was there. The oceans were there. The mountains were there. The tiny drops of morning mist that settle on flowers at dawn. They were there. The atoms that make up your body were there. The iron that keeps your heart beating. The calcium that gives your bones their strength. The oxygen that rides your every breath. All of it was there. All of it, held in an indescribable compression, an inconceivable density. And this singularity waited. Or rather, it did not wait. Because waiting requires time. It simply was. With a quality of being so profound that we can only describe it as the thing that came before all things, and even that description falls short. Quantum physics tells us something strange. Even a true, absolute vacuum is never entirely empty. Think about that. Imagine the deepest void in space. A region devoid of even a single atom, where no light passes through. And yet scientists tell us that no matter how empty such a region appears, It is alive with ceaseless, bubbling fluctuations of energy, tiny events of creation and annihilation too small and too brief to observe directly. They call this the quantum vacuum. In the quantum world, the existence of something can never be declared with absolute certainty. Particles are born quite literally from nothing and dissolve back into nothing, in intervals so short, they exist at the very edge of what time itself can measure, as if the universe were a restless creature, never quite satisfied with the state of non-existence, ceaselessly trying, producing, withdrawing, trying again. This restlessness, this quantum trembling, this endless micro-flickering of existence, it may well be what ignited the Big Bang. How it began, precisely, we do not know. And this is one of the most beautiful admissions in all of science. We do not know. The laws of physics cannot be traced back to that first infinitely small moment when everything began. When we attempt to reach beyond it, our equations collapse, our numbers lose their meaning, and mathematics itself falls into a deep and eloquent silence. And within that great silence, the universe began to exist. Let me carry you now to that very first instant. Your eyes are already closed. You are breathing, slowly, steadily, following a quiet rhythm. Your body is growing lighter, as though you are being gently pressed into the warmth beneath you. And now consider zero, the 0th second of zero, the 0th fraction of the 0th second of zero. Not a number, a concept, the precise beginning of existence itself. At that instant, the entire universe was smaller than a single Planck length. You might wonder what a Planck length is. What is 100 millionth of a centimeter? An atomic nucleus. Can you imagine 100 billionth of an atomic nucleus? Probably not. The human brain cannot generate images at these scales. Something so small that the word small itself becomes useless. The Planck length is smaller still. So small that below this scale, it is genuinely uncertain whether space and time, as we understand them, carry any meaning at all. At this scale, the very fabric of space may be foamy and trembling and indistinct, not a smooth cloth but something closer to a knitted weave, riddled with loops and gaps when examined closely enough. And from something of that size, the entire universe erupted. The word explosion is not quite right. You may already know this. The Big Bang was not an explosion. Explosions expand outward from a center. Explosions require a surrounding space in which to detonate. In the Big Bang, space itself expanded. There was nothing outside of space for anything to explode into. Think of it this way. Imagine the surface of a balloon and draw a few dots on it. As you inflate the balloon, the dots move apart. But where did the dots go? No way. The distance between them grew. The surface expanded. The very ground carrying them stretched wider. That is what happened in the Big Bang. Space itself expanded. Distances grew. This was not a container enlarging to hold its contents. It was something growing together with everything inside it. And this expansion, this extraordinary flowering, happened at a speed beyond imagining. Within a tiny fraction of the first second after the Big Bang, a period expressed as 10 to the power of -36, a sliver of a second so fine it has no name in ordinary language, the universe underwent a staggering expansion. We call it inflation. This expansion moved so fast it left the speed of light far behind, yet it violated no law of physics, because it was not matter moving through space. It was the fabric of space itself stretching, carrying everything within it as a river carries leaves on its surface. During this period of inflation, the universe grew from the size of a single atom to roughly the size of a grapefruit. A grapefruit, yes, but the density, the temperature, and the energy within that grapefruit were unlike anything that exists in the universe today. or has ever existed since. Matter was not yet present. Atoms did not yet exist. No neutrons, no protons, not even mass, in any meaningful sense. There was only energy, pure, raw, seething, a raging sea of energy with nothing to contain it and nothing to calm it. Take one more breath now, deep and slow. Notice how your breath has found a rhythm. Notice how your body has accepted that rhythm as its own, as though you are no longer thinking about breathing. It is simply happening for you, without any effort on your part. Just as everything that arose in that first instant arose without decision, without intention, without thought of any kind. No will was required, no plan, no consciousness. It simply happened. The laws of physics seemed to command it. Yet even those laws were not yet fully settled, as though the universe were writing its own rules and simultaneously obeying them, all at once, in the same breath, and within the first 100 millionth of that first second. Something impossible to visualize, though we can try. The temperature of the universe exceeded 1 trillion degrees. The temperature at the core of our sun today is roughly 15 million degrees. 1 trillion degrees is 100,000 times hotter than that. Numbers lose their reality at this point, don't they? 100,000 times hotter, you say, and your mind reaches out to grasp what that means, and cannot. And that is exactly right, because that moment lies beyond the outermost edge of anything human experience can reach. At that density and that temperature, the boundary between matter and energy dissolved entirely into meaninglessness. Einstein had told us this would be so. Energy and mass are the same thing, expressed differently. E equals mc squared. And in those first fractions of a second, that equation was not merely a theory. It was the living reality of everything. Energy was constantly converting into tiny particles, and particles were dissolving back into energy. A boiling, a dancing, a magnificent festival of creation and annihilation. And from within that seething sea, something emerged. Forces. Today, the universe is governed by 4 fundamental forces: gravity, electromagnetism, the weak nuclear force, and the strong nuclear force. These forces are the reason anything holds together at all. Atomic nuclei hold together. Atoms hold together. Planets remain intact. Galaxies turn. Without these forces, everything would fly apart into an eternal dispersal. Nothing would ever gather. Nothing would ever take form. Nothing would ever become anything at all. But in that first instant, these 4 forces did not exist as separate things. They were a single force, a superforce. All of them merged together, indistinguishable from one another, unified as one. To imagine this, consider a metaphor. 3 states of water. Ice, liquid water, and steam are all chemically identical. 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen. But at sufficient heat, the distinction between them dissolves into a kind of haze, an ambiguous in-between state. As they cool, they separate. Each takes on its own identity. And so it was that as the universe cooled, this single unified force began to separate. First, gravity broke away. That ancient, deep, pervasive force, the one that holds the universe together, that draws masses toward one another, that bends time, that curves space. It peeled away from the others and found its own identity. Precisely when this happened, we cannot say, because at the boundaries of Planck time, physics goes blind. Then, shortly after, still within a vanishingly small fraction of a second, a strong nuclear force separated out. This is the force that binds protons and neutrons together within the atomic nucleus. It is the shortest range but most powerful bond in the universe. Without it, the nucleus of every atom would fly apart in an instant. Matter could never hold its shape. And later still, a weak nuclear force and electromagnetism parted from each other. Even now, we can see the trace of their ancient union written into mathematics, the unified theory known as the electroweak theory, a memory of their former oneness, engraved in the deep structure of the equations. Within that first second, just 1 second, think of that. So much happened. Yet when I say so much, I do not mean loud things, dramatic things, spectacles of light and noise. Quite the opposite. All of it unfolded in a silence that made silence itself seem loud. Matter and antimatter came into being. Every particle has its antiparticle. For every electron, a positron. For every proton, an antiproton. And when a particle and its antiparticle meet, they annihilate each other completely. They convert into pure energy and vanish, as though they were never there. In those first moments, matter and antimatter were produced in equal amounts. Had they been perfectly equal, nothing would exist today. Matter and antimatter would have cancelled each other out entirely. Only energy would remain. Light, emptiness. But they were not perfectly equal. For every 1 billion antiparticles, there were 1,000,000,001 particles. 1 billion antiprotons for every 1,000,000,001 protons. This minute imbalance, this discrepancy of 1 part in a billion, this is the reason that anything exists at all. That 1 in a billion surplus was destroyed, and yet it was not. It remained. It survived. And it is that surviving fraction, that extraordinary 1 in a billion excess, that makes up you and me and the stars and the oceans and the clouds and the mornings. 1 in a billion. 1 in a billion. And yet everything. This thought sometimes fills people with a feeling of smallness, of loneliness. To exist amid such vastness as a mere remnant, a leftover rounding error. But I think of it differently, and perhaps you can too, because if the universe had placed any importance on eliminating that 1 in a billion surplus, it would have established a perfect symmetry and erased it completely. It did not. It left it, as though instinctively, without awareness, it made room for us. And within that room, we came to be. The first second is passing, like a single, immense, unhurried breath. And by the time that second is over, the universe is already something entirely different from what it was. No longer a singularity, no longer a point of infinite density. Matter and antimatter are no longer devouring each other in equal measure. Things are beginning to settle, to slow, to find their shape. At the close of that first second, the temperature of the universe is still extraordinary, somewhere in the region of 10 billion degrees. But this is only a fraction of what it was at the very beginning. The universe is cooling rapidly, and as it cools, energy can convert into matter more readily. Quarks, the building blocks from which protons and neutrons will one day form, now exist freely, separate and unbound, drifting as individuals rather than fusing together under unbearable pressure. But that too will not last long. Your eyelids are very heavy now. You can feel the exact shape of the pillow beneath your head. Perfectly placed, perfectly still. Your breath is coming and going like the slow movement of a tide, arriving and retreating, arriving and retreating. Keep going. Just listen. Just feel. By the close of the first second, the universe was roughly 1 light-year in diameter, though even that is a misleading measurement, since the concept of a light-year was still not quite settled, and space and time were not yet behaving the way they do today. But as a point of reference, 1 light-year is the distance light travels in a year, approximately 6 trillion miles. And that vast expanse was filled with particles at a density we have no instrument to truly comprehend. Photons streamed in every direction. Electrons and protons were flung outward in all directions at once. Neutrinos and antineutrinos were seeking each other through the chaos. Collisions, transformations, annihilations, creations, continuous, relentless, unceasing. From the outside, if there had been an outside, it might have looked like pure disorder. But order was there, inscribed in the deep grammar of mathematics, written into the laws of physics, invisible but absolutely real. And that order was patient. It was waiting for its moment to arrive. Before I leave you here, I want to share a secret with you. When scientists study the Big Bang, they sometimes speak of there having been a kind of sound at the beginning of the universe. Not a sound in the literal sense. There was no air to carry it, no medium through which sound waves could travel. But there were pressure waves, density variations, rhythms. The echoes of those rhythms are still visible to us today, in what we call the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe. This radiation was released when the universe was approximately 380,000 years old, long after the first second, but still incomprehensibly early in the story. It travels toward us from every direction, even now. We can detect it with antennae. We have mapped it, and within that map, the patterns of that first sound are visible. Wavelengths, compressions, rhythms of expansion and contraction. The seeds of the structures that would eventually become galaxies were already encoded in that faint, ancient glow. The Big Bang had music, then, immeasurably slow, immeasurably deep, inaudible to any ear, but real. And the echo of that music reaches all the way into the room where you are lying now, in the breath you are drawing at this very moment, in the dark matter drifting between galaxies, in the burning hearts of distant stars. All of it is a continuation of that first sound. Now let your mind drift through this great story without trying to hold it. Not 1,000,000 years ago, not 1,000,000,000 years ago, 13.8 billion years ago. In that first instant, existence itself was nailed into place. That singular point, that silent eruption, that quantum trembling. And at the end of all of it, here is someone lying in a bed, listening to these words, drawing this breath. You, the outcome of 13.8 billion years of the universe's effort. A gift from that 1 in a billion excess. A product of the dance between 4 forces. The result of inflation, of cooling, of collapse, of formation, of explosion, of stillness, of stars being born and dying and being born again. The end. No, not the end. A resting place. Because you are part of this story. The atoms that make you gathered here together for a time. They will scatter. Eventually, they will go elsewhere, take other forms. And billions of years from now, they may burn again inside another star. But for now, they are here. With you. In you. Your eyes are fully closed now, and your mind has begun to drift through a wide darkness, not the darkness of the universe's first moment, but the soft and yielding darkness of sleep. The first second has passed. The universe exists. And so do you. And that is enough. For today, for tonight, for this moment, it is enough. You do not need to remember any of this journey from the void before the Big Bang to the close of that 5 second. These words will stay with you while you sleep, quietly, like music playing just beyond the edge of hearing. And when you wake in the morning, perhaps a small warmth will remain in some corner of your mind. Not a thought about how vast the universe is, but a feeling about how completely it holds you. Because you are not outside this story. You are the story itself. Now simply breathe. Slowly. Evenly. Deeply. And let go. The universe is doing what it has always known how to do. It is carrying you. It has been carrying you for 13.8 billion years. Sleep now.